Welcome to Hope is Here, bringing hope to those struggling with life's difficult situations.
Welcome to Hope is Here. My name is GregJHorn. I'm really excited about our guest today. I heard her speak at a conference, I believe it was around 20 years ago, and just was really encouraged, motivated, just with her life story and just how she chose to use a hurt and a very challenging deep valley in life to seek God, and God gave her a plan to help her move forward and get her life in balance and just to prosper and be a blessing to others. And I know you're going to be blessed by today and tomorrow's programs. Pamela Shaw is my guest today. She's a speaker, she's a leader, she's a coach, she's a mom, she's a bridge builder, and I love on her website, she's got on the homepage there, Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 11, encouraging one another and lifting each other up just as you are already doing. And that's what you did, Pam, when I heard you speak several years ago, and you're still doing it each day, so you're a perfect guest for Hope is Here. So thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Greg. The time has flown since we first met.
It really has, and I believe it's already April of 2025, but I know a lot about you, but share with our listeners. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I grew up in a really small rural area, population 500, a middle child, so there were three of us with educator parents. We did not have a TV until I was 14. My parents were involved in the school's extracurricular and the community and the church. My dad was always a music minister, so I got involved in the church really young. You know, if he had a musical program to put together, we sang. We did whatever was needed. When I was 9, I accepted Jesus and got baptized and walked in my faith through school years. You know, I think at that time, looking back, I was very behavior-driven. In my faith, there were good girls and bad girls and good kids and bad kids, and it pretty much had to do with whether they drank or didn't drink and got good grades or didn't get good grades. And so it was perhaps a shallow faith, but it was a faith nonetheless, and it was the beginning of my walk with Jesus. I respected the boundaries. After high school, I went to the University of Kentucky with an unknown major. I just wanted to be a Theta in a sorority and a UK cheerleader like my friend. Ultimately, I declared English as a major and a dance minor, and then got involved in college in Campus Crusade for Christ and Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and even through college held to my moral values and had a community of faith friends, many of them still in my life today. But, you know, each of those transitions are significant times for kids and young adults, from childhood to school to college, and I've navigated them pretty well, still very much a behavior focus. I moved to Fort Lauderdale right out of college, which people don't leave Kentucky. If you're born in Kentucky, you live in Kentucky, you work in Kentucky, you die in Kentucky. If you leave, you come back, which I'm a testimony to that. But right out of college, I went to Fort Lauderdale to teach high school English and dance and coached the drill team. I took on a lot of responsibility, 1,000 miles away from home, 23 years old, no family, no friends, everything was new. Fort Lauderdale had a super hardworking role model of a principal who loved me because I was a yes girl. You know, will you coach the drill team? Yes. Will you coach the JV cheerleaders? Yes. Will you choreograph the musicals? Yes. But I loved my job. I loved the students. I was infatuated with the beach and South Florida life. I just met my roommate as soon as I moved there, and I did not have that built-in faith community. I worked Friday nights, Saturday morning parades, from football games to parades, and stayed pretty much one day ahead in my preparation. And so church, you know, it's funny, you can't find what you're not looking for. Now, my roommate and the other teachers that I was around, a little bit on the more, let's see, what would be the word? Experienced side, social side. And so I was walking into situations that I had never been in before. And I will say that my walk started to fade because I started to fit in. For the first time in my life, I made a bigger priority out of fitting in than I did standing true to what I knew. And so Sunday morning, I'd get up and drive around Fort Lauderdale, and look for a church. Now, keep in mind, we did not have our phones and the internet and Google a church, and all that did not exist. There were still paper maps, not even MapQuest. So this is a long time ago. So literally, I would drive around looking for a church in Fort Lauderdale where some of the best teaching in the world is, and I couldn't find one. And so, bottom line, Greg, at that season, I walked what I say to the left. That all my life, I walked to the right, did what was expected. But at this critical turning point, I did walk to the left and paid a price for it.
Well, I understand that. I've been there too and kind of wandered off from God in my early 20s, so I respect that, but I think that's what helps make our faith become real. So talk to us about what was your first defining moment.
Well, that 90-hour work week was taking its toll. For the most part, the people who had keys to the school were the football coach, the janitor, and me. I went into debt, making poor decisions financially. I took this job. It was $11,500 for the year, $11,500 for the year. And so I spent about $4,000 every summer just trying to keep my head above the water, because instead of coming home to work at Mammoth Cave National Park, which was my side hustle in the summer, I stayed there to take cheerleaders to cheer camp, drill team to dance camp, band to band camp. So I made poor financial decisions. I was making poor social decisions. And, I was convicted. As a follower of Christ, you don't get left alone in that sin. So I felt convicted, but I stayed busy. And even though I knew God was wooing me, I knew He still loved me. But at this turning point, at this transition, I was 4 years into teaching. A second roommate got into Mary Kay, and we made so much fun of her. I mean, I only knew of Mary Kay, those long pink Cadillacs, and an older lady who used to sell. And so my image of Mary Kay was certainly not us at that age. But my roommate fell in love with the company, fell in love with the leader, and before I knew it, I had said, yes, I will also be a part of Mary Kay. I thought it would be a great way for me to make some side hustle cash and get home for Christmas without burdening my parents for Christmas money or travel money. I knew that they put me through school, and it was time for me to shore up. So it seemed like an easy enough way. And I started my Mary Kay business and just had a blast. I didn't know how to sell anything, but I did have this great leader who was also a Christ follower. And I started to learn about the business and about working on your own, and just had such a good time. Went back to teach my fifth and final year, what proved to be my final year. When I walked in that year, I looked around and I didn't see anything that attracted me to teaching. And I felt in my spirit the Lord say, "Get out of here." It was a whisper. And I was like, "No, Lord, I can't. I moved to Florida. You don't leave Kentucky. I want to teach. I want to speak. I want to write." And I felt Him say, "You're going to speak. You're going to teach, and you're going to write, but you're going to have to get out of here." And so I stayed. I stayed. I was under contract, and I didn't know what else I was going to do. Didn't think I could support myself in Mary Kay. So again, I took things into my hands. And even though I was still talking to the Lord, I didn't have that recommitment. Well, I recruited a gal who was an on-fire believer. She was younger than I was, but she was excited about her Mary Kay business. She invited me to her church. And at that experience, it was Calvary Chapel, Fort Lauderdale. At that church experience, I rededicated my life to Jesus and had an up-and-down roller coaster with both the business and roommates. They all moved away. One went to Tampa, one went to Seattle. And so the Lord did not wait for me to pluck myself out of my bad behavior. He took everybody away from me that was riding the train. So I was alone. And I'd had some setbacks with my Mary Kay business and was rebuilding my Cadillac, but going to church. And then in 1989, met my late husband. We married in 1991. And then in 1994, had our son and moved back to Kentucky to be close to family. So I had reestablished a love relationship with the Lord. And, of course, Jerry was a follower of Christ. And when we moved back to Kentucky, there was so much new to create, as the work world was not virtual at that time at all. And so that was a big transition, actually, coming back home and living back in Kentucky away from Fort Lauderdale.
Well, I can definitely understand that, and like all of us, then another transition happened. So talk to us about what happened in 1997 in your life.
Yeah, so my business was going great, and we were thriving and multiplying leaders, and I don't know how much you know about Mary Kay Ash, but she's a Christian. She's in heaven today, of course, but Mary Kay established early in her business that when you put God first, family second, career third, in that order, everything works. Out of that order, nothing works. And so, once again, I'm immersed in a community of faith-believing leaders. And so the business was going great, and I was excited, and the future looked great. In 1997, at our seminar, we'd gotten a high-level recognition at that seminar. I was pregnant with our second child, came home in 2 days, had a miscarriage, and 2 days after that got word that a friend had died suddenly from complications of an elective surgery. And I woke up to go to her funeral in Utah, and I kept being pressed with 1 Thessalonians 5:11. 1 Thessalonians 5:11. And I was just grieving, and I was thinking, Thessalonians, what's New Testament? And it's a short chapter. It's probably not even a chapter. I kept talking myself out of looking it up. But it's the very verse that you mentioned earlier. It's 1 Thessalonians 5:11. Consider then encouraging one another just as in fact you're doing. And I was wrestling at that season whether or not to stay in the Mary Kay business or go into full-time ministry. We went to her funeral out in Utah, and it was a Mormon funeral. And so my thoughts were just swirling, and grief was overwhelming. And the Lord dropped the desire, the goal, and the tool in my spirit to build within the company. And because I thought maybe my life should be ministry outside of the company, He reminded me that I had ministry inside the company right where I was. I think that so many times we're looking for the next thing instead of looking to be planted where we are. When difficulty comes, it's easy to look like, okay, well, what's the next thing? When, in fact, God, He does not, like you prayed for us before we started, He does not waste the pain. And He does not waste the difficulty. There's always something to learn. And in that season and out of that season, birthed the 90-Day Planner, which is the date book that I have authored with the accompanying tools behind it. But that all happened on the heels of tremendous grief and loss.
Well, just amazing how God worked through all that, and I love how you listened and you were patient, and how you looked into His words. He loves to speak to His kids that way. You've just tuned in. We've been talking with Pam Shaw. She does coaching. She's a great speaker. She's a leader. Really want to encourage you to take a look at her website. It's PamelaShaw.pink, PamelaShaw.pink. You'll be really encouraged by that. She's also on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. So she just has a lot of gifts that'll help encourage you. And I'm super excited about tomorrow. We're going to continue hearing about how God has worked through her life, and she's going to share some of the core principles from the Design Your Life Planner that she was talking about earlier. And I know you're going to be greatly blessed by that. But unfortunately, she had to go through a tragedy also during this season of life, and she'll share about that. So you've been blessed by today's program. I hope that you'll share it with somebody else. But most importantly, I hope you'll join us again tomorrow as we'll continue our conversation with Pam Shaw on Hope is Here.
Thank you for listening to Hope is Here podcast. To listen to one of our previous programs or to make a tax-deductible donation, please go to our website, hopeishere.today. That's hopeishere.today.
Sleep local with Mattress Overstock. Take your new mattress home today or have it delivered tomorrow from Kentucky's premier locally owned and operated mattress store chain. Select from the best brands available, find what you need, and get it quick. Sleep better starting as soon as tonight. Only the best mattresses at locally owned Mattress Overstock. With 5 locations in Central Kentucky, find the location closest to you online at mattressoverstock.us. That's mattressoverstock.us.